What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome to the reveal of the number 9 team in my 2020 NFL Power Rankings with a deep dive into the Dallas Cowboys. Before we hop in, a quick reminder, please do hit that like button down below. It's the easiest way to support my channel if you enjoy the series, so I appreciate you in advance for taking a second to do that. So the Dallas Cowboys, coming in at number 9, have one of the more simple narratives in the league. We all know this team has talent, and we absolutely know that this team has expectations. But after doing what was honestly long overdue and moving on from head coach Jason Garrett and not handing the keys to the franchise quite yet over to Dak Prescott through a long-term extension, can the 2020 installment of this team finally be the unit that lives up to the high expectations set by Jerry Jones here in Dallas, or will this team have yet another season of disappointment? Well, this series is going to be the perfect way to answer that question. If you're new here, what we do is we break down the coaching culture here in Dallas, and then we'll break down the roster, ranking each position group, how they stack up against the rest of the league. While we do that, we will be looking at my own custom Madden roster. So while it is a video game, I do realize that they are my own ratings, and it's a nice copyright-free graphic that I can use to show you how I perceive each player. Once we get through that, we're going to look at this team's schedule, their Vegas over-under, and my win total expectations for this team. So it's a full overview of the 2020 Cowboys. And the first thing I want to break down here is the hiring of former Packers head coach Mike McCarthy. And we're going to talk about this for a little while here because this is a very pivotal conversation to have about this Cowboys team. So it's no secret that McCarthy had a fall from grace in Green Bay, and it was more than time enough to move on for Green Bay in 2018. But in a lot of ways, I actually think this hiring made a ton of sense for the Cowboys and has a good chance of working out. And I say that because when you really look at why McCarthy struggled in seasons like 2017, 2018, the seasons that led to his firing, I think several of the weaknesses surrounding him as a coach will be complemented very well in his new surroundings in Dallas. For one, the roster is simply much better than what he had in his final years in Green Bay. Like Ted Thompson's stubborn draft and develop, avoid free agency at all costs mentality basically left McCarthy with a roster that sure had some good top talent, but was just filled with incompetent, young, undrafted free agents. And even in 2018, McCarthy became the first victim of Brian Gutekunst and his incapability to add starting caliber weapons to the offense. So when you compare what McCarthy had to work with in, say, 2017, 2018, with guys like Geronimo Allison, rookie Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and the corpse of Jimmy Graham, it's just night and day to what he'll have to work with here in Dallas. And you look back to when McCarthy had similar receiving cores to what he has now in Dallas, like 2011, 2014 in Green Bay, his offenses were nearly unstoppable. Now, obviously, he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers here, but one thing he does have is offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who's also going to factor into this coach and culture conversation. And I think that Kellen Moore is the perfect complement to Mike McCarthy, in that a big reason Green Bay moved on from McCarthy was his timing offense had kind of gone stale. And in a league where finding mismatch problems, using pre-snap motion, and where misdirection is king, McCarthy used almost none of it. Now, in 2020, McCarthy has vowed publicly that he's studied this aspect of offensive scheming. And now he has, in my opinion, one of the emerging creative play callers in the league in Kellen Moore. And I think this master and apprentice setup, if you will, is really going to work from the get-go for Dallas, especially because McCarthy is very open about letting Moore call the plays. Now, I know a lot of Cowboys fans think that Moore did a poor job, that he's a bad play caller. Well, all I'm going to say about that is that basically, unless you're a Niners, Saints, Chiefs, or Ravens fan, and even in the Niners and Ravens case, I've heard them complain about play calling, but about 28 out of 32 teams in the league, their fans point to their play caller as a scapegoat. And I feel very confident in what Kellen Moore did last year as far as using motion, simplifying things for Dak by exploiting favorable matchups and all of that. And I think paired with McCarthy's leadership, you're not going to have some of the game flow problems, such as relying too much on the run game that I think really stemmed from Jason Garrett here. So overall, I think McCarthy's going to bring an experienced CEO approach, and is also going to be an excellent developer of young talent, which he definitely proved in Green Bay. Like, McCarthy had some redeeming qualities in Green Bay, and I think they're really going to come out and shine here in Dallas. And I like how some of his flaws, as far as creative offense and thinking modern, are going to be covered up by a young, forward-thinking coordinator in Kellen Moore. So that was a lot of time to spend on the coach here. But this is a big change, and I think that how McCarthy and Moore performed together in a weird season with COVID is going to be a major factor towards whether or not this team meets expectations in 2020. So they're going to rank 5th in offensive coaching culture. I really do believe in this combination. You also have the added factor of the leadership at the quarterback position between Dak Prescott and even beyond that, Andy Dalton. So I do believe in this offense quite a bit, as they're also going to rank 5th for offense in general. That does leave them at 11th in overall coaching culture, because the defensive coaching culture is 26th. I don't have nearly as much to say about Mike Nolan, other than let's just say he has a lot to prove for being a 61-year-old defensive coordinator who's kind of bounced all over the league. And it's not like McCarthy brings a whole lot to the defensive side of the ball either. So the defensive coaching culture is going to be a question mark, but I am pretty optimistic about what this coaching culture is going to look like on the more important offensive side of the ball. So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about this roster, starting with the quarterback position. Dak Prescott going to come in ranked 15th, and I know that is going to split a lot of people in the comments down below. So let's stay respectful here. Dak played like a top 5 to 10 quarterback last season. I will acknowledge that. Here's the deal. A lot of quarterbacks are going to play like Dak Prescott did, given the surrounding core he had to work with last year. We've seen it from guys with very similar, let's just say, physical limitations. Guys like Alex Smith, Andy Dalton on this very roster have played like top 5 to 10 quarterbacks in given seasons. But I think a major problem fans have is splitting the difference between saying a guy played like a top 5 to 10 quarterback and saying that he is, as far as projecting future performance. And I think Dak completely falls into this category of quarterbacks where in a given season can play like a top 10 quarterback, but he can also play like a bottom 12 quarterback, as we've seen basically that play out over the course of his career. When he has everything around him, like he did last year, like he did as a rookie, he's going to play like a top 10 quarterback. But does he have what it takes to really elevate this team in two ways? Number one, when he doesn't have the help around him, can he boost them up and still be a playoff contender? Things that you should expect from a $35+ million a year quarterback. To me, that is the number one qualifier on if you should pay the guy. And that's really why I come in on Dak as I wouldn't pay him yet. He hasn't proved the ability to elevate this team. If anything, they've underachieved under Dak Prescott, in my opinion. But the other aspect, of course, is having that sort of, call it an it factor. But beyond that, more specifically, being able to meet expectations and make your team a Super Bowl contender. They have never felt that way under Dak Prescott. And I truly believe if you asked around the league, whether it was players, coaches, or just the fans, do you fear playing the Cowboys with Dak Prescott? No, you really don't. So often he doesn't meet the expectations. He doesn't make the plays when you need them the most. And that was no more evident down the stretch last season. Yes, he was banged up, but he showed similar flaws to me, for example, against the Eagles in a must-win game to win that division, scrapping to win the division with 9 wins, showed similar flaws that he maybe showed week 5 against Green Bay or on Thanksgiving against Buffalo, again, where the Cowboys could not match other playoff contending teams. And to get more specific about what Dak is as a player, he doesn't excel to me at any one thing. And that's really what contributes to all of this conversation about him disappointing. He is a very good quarterback. He's a very smart quarterback. As far as pre-snap processor, and you want to talk about first read, getting it right 100% of the time, that's Dak Prescott. You scheme this guy up, you give him help around him, he is going to execute the offense to perfection. And he brings some nice things with his mobility. But what does he do from a traits-based analysis standpoint that helps transcend what is given, basically? Does he have elite arm talent to utilize the entire field from the passing game with consistent accuracy and the ability to throw guys open? No, not really. I would say far from it, honestly. There's a lot of times where his throws underwhelm to me. And then there's the aspect of play extension and creating beyond your first read. Now, he has the mobility, and he will do it, similar to guys like Cam Newton, similar to guys like Marcus Mariota. But one thing about Dak Prescott is he misses that balance to me. Yes, he'll have those flashy plays like a Watson, like a Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes. He'll have those flashy plays. It's the rate and the consistency and the know-how of when to do that. What I'm getting at here is far too often when that first read isn't there, he is going to just take that 50-50 ball. And I think a lot of that is part of what the Cowboys have told him and how they've coached him. It's very clearly the philosophy here is if that first read isn't there, we want you to throw a well-placed, back shoulder ball to Michael Gallup. And this year it's going to be CeeDee Lamb, and I think it's a perfect fit for what they want to do here. But I don't think we're going to see him consistently knowing when to use his feet to extend plays. Again, he will do it, and that's why people are going to come in the comments and be like, you're an idiot, you're going to show me a highlight of him doing it. I acknowledge he will do it, but there's far too many times where he has an escape lane. He has an opportunity on a 3rd and 8 to get outside the pocket and lead to a more high probability play as far as finding an open receiver by using his feet to extend plays. But instead, he will elect to throw that contested ball into double coverage, or he'll try to high point a ball over the middle, and he'll sail it over Amari Cooper's head, for example, which is an interception risk. He's just missing a little bit of that it factor, which people hate to hear, but I think what I just said about play extension ties into that, combined with he does seem to just occasionally miss given throws that should be touchdowns. So that's a lot of time to spend on the quarterback and the coach here, but they're so important as far as this team meeting those expectations. Now, again, they rank 15th for the quarterback position, and they do have Andy Dalton here, and we hinted at Andy Dalton a couple times earlier in that Andy Dalton has had a season like Dak had last year in, don't quote me on, I think it was 2015. He ended up missing the final few weeks of the season and didn't get a chance to show it in the playoffs. But, Andy Dalton was a legitimate MVP candidate in a lot of ways. Dak wasn't winning as many games last year, so he wasn't in that conversation, and Lamar was doing what he was doing. But statistically, Andy Dalton, with similar pieces around him, has played at the level that Dak Prescott is playing at right now. And that wasn't that long ago. And since then, Cincinnati's completely fallen apart. Now, I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination that Dalton should start or they should plan on letting Prescott go and have Dalton as the future. But what I will say is if Prescott regresses back towards the mean for his career to being a 16 to 20 quarterback and he's still demanding $40 million, you can't possibly tell me that is a better option than paying Andy Dalton, who to me is the 23rd, 24th best quarterback in the league, who has very similar traits to Dak Prescott. You can't possibly tell me that you'd rather have Dak at $40 million than Andy Dalton at $4 million. You're just going to be able to put a better team around him. So I do think it's interesting. As far, to wrap this up, would I pay Dak Prescott? I'm just going to say that I think the Cowboys are doing it right. I understand that he's played very well, and if he does it again for another season, it's going to be very tough to turn that away. But I do think the sort of, prove-it approach here is appropriate given what he looked like in 2 out of his 4 seasons on that rookie contract. So let's go ahead and move on through this roster and talk about the running back room. And it's going to be more negative talk here with the running back room until we get to the rest of this roster, because I am lower on Zeke. I don't think he's a top 5 running back in the NFL. Now, you want to talk about just a guy running between the tackles, whether it's inside zone or power run, sure. His explosiveness through a hole, ability to break arm tackles, combined with the home run threat is fantastic. And I do think he's, clearly in the top 10, somewhere in the 5 to 8 range with guys like Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, and the lights of some other guys. What he misses to me is that receiving aspect of his game. It's not that he's a bad receiver. He just doesn't consistently make the guys miss in the screen game or simply running routes out of the backfield. He'll make some really splashy plays in this regard, but just isn't at the level of some other guys out there. So it dings him a little bit. He's fantastic. I don't want to shred Zeke. Would I have paid the guy what he asked for? Absolutely the hell not. I think that combined with potentially paying Dak Prescott $40 million would just pigeonhole this team into mediocrity for another 3 years to come. But it is what it is. He's a very good running back up to this point. They've been able to keep this offense intact. Would I rather have Byron Jones on my team than Ezekiel Elliott? Absolutely. But here we are. I think Zeke is a very high-end running back who is going to help this offense rank 5th. Like, he does help, even if I'm lower on him as far as not being a top 3 or 4 running back in the league. And I know a lot of people agree with me on that aspect about Zeke, in that he's great, not elite. I'm not going to use the term good, not great, because he is a great running back. But we're not even sure he's more valuable than his backup here, Tony Pollard, who is phenomenal as a receiving back. Really fluid hands out of the backfield, has that natural catch and run mentality, has good, I'm not going to say vision, because Zeke has good running vision, but I think Pollard's sort of ability to make guys miss and be explosive in the receiving game is more consistent than Ezekiel Elliott. So it's a great 1-2 punch to have these guys together. And that is your entire running back room. I mean, everyone else here is undrafted free agents. So they are going to rank 8th. It's lower than a lot of people would expect, but it is what it is. That's just where I come in on Zeke and Pollard. But let's move on and talk about this receiving core. We can get much more optimistic. I'm going to rank this 3rd in the league. I think it's an incredibly explosive group, and you have the potential between guys in Gallup and CeeDee Lamb. If they can really reach their high-end upside, you're talking about a clear-cut best receiving core in the NFL. So you have Amari Cooper, who I am extremely high on. I think he is a top 5 receiver in the NFL. His ability to get open, which is the most important trait among wide receivers in the league, is quite possibly the most elite in the league. Let's just say that. He gets open better than anyone in the league. He's got speed as a deep threat. He has technician as a route runner. And he's got footwork and length with his arms. And he can do anything to get off of press at the line of scrimmage. He, to me, besides Tyreek Hill because of his speed maybe, or if Antonio Brown came back healthy, or if Julio Jones is healthy too. There's some other guys in there, but Amari Cooper right now, week 1, he might be the hardest one-on-one cover in the league, and that counts for a lot here. And then you're going to pair him with CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, who we talked about Dak's propensity to throw the F-it ball. If that first read isn't open, if a defense manages to double Amari Cooper, well, he can then turn to CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and say, go make a play. And when you have that, you don't need to, dance around and make all these crazy plays behind the pocket, because when you have 2 options that are just incredible contested catch, go after the ball guys, especially CeeDee Lamb here, who has potential to just blow up here, in my opinion. Because of the way Dak plays, and that he will throw those contested attempts very, very often. I mean, you can't ask for a better compliment. Now, I'm a little confused as to who's going to play in the slot, because I think if you pigeonhole Amari Cooper as your full-time slot wide receiver in 3 wide receiver sets, I do think that limits the upside a little bit because Amari Cooper on the outside is so special as well. So does Michael Gallup maybe plays as some of that big body slot? Do we see him come off the field for someone else here? I don't exactly know how that all is going to play out. I think it's an interesting dynamic that I first thought of when they took CeeDee Lamb, but I eventually got over it because I was like, CeeDee Lamb is just too good of a player and too valuable of a position to pass up. So I love the top three there. Now the depth and the tight end room is probably the reason this is not number one in the league at the moment, and some of the youth there with guys like Lamb and Gallup. But the depth at wide receiver is fine. I did like Cedric Wilson coming out of Boise State. Ventrell Bryant is an intriguing athletic profile out of Temple who I expect to make this team. He played well when given opportunities last year. You have Devin Smith, who's having kind of a late career surprise in that he's actually on a roster. He was a second-round pick for the Jets, who just seemed to suffer crazy injuries year after year. But in his prime at Ohio State, he was a very intriguing deep threat. Then you have Noah Brown, a big-bodied guy that's been around here that's kind of slowly developing, could make this team as a big-bodied threat to compete with Kendrick Rogers out of Texas A&M, who's a similar concept there. Interesting depth, no one particularly that you're scared of. And then the tight end room, some people like Blake Jarwin. I'm not huge on him. I think he's kind of just a guy. He's a good athlete, decent blocker. He's a quality, low-end starting tight end, just doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I did like Dalton Schultz coming out of Stanford. He's more of a technician. So keep an eye on him. If he can earn some starting time, I think he can do some of that Jason Witten stuff as far as being a chain mover, catching 4-yard stick routes and all that stuff. And then Blake Bell, Cole Hukatini, that's your tight end depth. Charlie Tamapow was a good pickup, undrafted tight end pickup for this team, who I could see making the team as a blocking type and a special teamer. So then we've got the offensive line here that's going to rank 5th in the league. It's not quite what it was in its glory days, but it's still at the top. You just have some more weak links than we're used to here, and we'll see now that Travis Frederick has retired, especially at center, what happens here. But you still have one of the top tackle duos in the league with Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. You really hope Tyron Smith can stay healthy for a full season. You have, I would say, the second best guard in the NFL now in Zach Martin. I think Quentin Nelson has reached that point, but both these guys are similar as far as just being elite at everything. Like Martin and Quentin Nelson, possibly the two best offensive linemen in the entire NFL. So anytime you have a collection of stars, it's going to help a center in Tyler Biadasz or even Joe Looney play above their expectations, and a guard in Connor Williams to develop, or Connor McGovern. But at center and left guard, you are going to have those questions. So it's going to be a competition between Joe Looney and what I thought was one of the better picks in the draft in Tyler Biadasz. Biadasz is not Travis Frederick coming out of Wisconsin. There's a reason Frederick was a first rounder and Biadasz was a fourth. He's just not as good of an athlete. I believe there's also injury questions with Tyler Biadasz. But the guy is a mauler in the run game. I want to say a 4-year starter at Wisconsin. If not 4, then 3. He mentally is going to be ready to step in here and play right away. And I think what he brings as far as his experience at center and his physicality as a run blocker, and it's not like Joe Looney is a great pass blocker. I think it's going to give him the nod, but it's going to be a competition. And with the coronavirus, they could give the nod to the veteran and not shake things up with Joe Looney, who he's been serviceable when Frederick was down. I think they're prepared for Looney to start, would hope that Tyler Biadasz beats him out. And then at left guard, you have plenty of depth to compete here. So you're looking at Connor Williams, who started last year. He's very slowly coming around. He was a tackle coming out of Texas. Athletic type, but just doesn't have the power as a blocker, and it's hurt him in pass protection and in creating push as a run blocker. So can he beef up a little bit in the offseason? Can he meet some of that potential kind of in year 3 here? I did like that pick. I think he's got upside. He just has to reach it. Connor McGovern, more of a traditional inside body, a 3rd-round pick last year out of Penn State. I think he's really going to push Connor Williams, and these two guys are going to basically drive each other to the point of Dallas having a starting caliber guard at that left guard spot, even if it's not a high-level guard. So you really have 4 deep of a good competition on the interior there, and I think you're going to merge with 2 low-end starters at center and left guard to round out a really good offensive line, obviously ranking 5th, and is completely here to help this offensive ranking that, again, comes in 5th. They did just sign Cameron Irving, by the way, as well, a veteran that can compete at any offensive line position. A good signing, I would say. So that's your offensive overview. I expect this to be a very explosive offense, despite some of the negative things I said about Dak Prescott. This was one of the best offenses in the league last year. I think they're fully equipped to be even better next year. Bringing in CeeDee Lamb, potentially solidifying the offensive line a little bit as far as health and competition. And, of course, bringing in Mike McCarthy to kind of oversee the whole thing, run by Kellen Moore in a second year here as coordinator. So I like the unit and the continuity as it's going to transition into a higher upside next year. And then the defense, this is a different conversation. There is talent scattered throughout on this defense. To me, it's a question of how cohesive is this unit going to be together. New defensive coordinator Mike Nolan. I expect a similar 4-3 scheme to be run here. So not crazy changes. But a lot of personnel movement. I don't think it's a bad defense. They rank 19th. I just think there's some question marks here. So let's get into it. Starting with the run defense, I do think they'll defend the run very well. 2 big signings up in the middle on the interior. Dontari Poe is on the PUP list at the moment, so they got to get him healthy. But Gerald McCoy, they draft Neville Gallimore in the 3rd round. Tristan Hill, hoping to get the 2nd year of development from him. It's a good, explosive interior defensive line. They have Antoine Woods as well. I think they'll get better play on the interior by a landslide than what they had last year, especially in run defense. So I do expect a boost there, but a big reason they're going to rank so high at 11 is you've got some big-bodied contributors on the outside. DeMarcus Lawrence is a stud in run defense. He is just a powerful player all around, and he's playing very disciplined at this stage in his career too. So he's going to contribute to the run defense. If they can get Tyrone Crawford healthy, he's on the PUP at the moment. I don't know. He's had some kind of scary injuries, so I don't know if he's going to be out there or not. I kind of didn't fully factor him in here, but in theory, if he's out there, that's a really tough front to run on early downs. And then they'll rotate him inside and out off the field on passing downs. But the linebackers here absolutely contribute to the run defense as well. Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, probably the best run-defending linebacker tandem in the league. Both of these guys are highly physical, big-bodied speedsters with instincts that fly to the ball. I can't say enough about this linebacker duo, and we'll talk more about them when we get to the linebacker room. And you even have Sean Lee. You know, if you're talking about run defense, you got to talk about base defense packages, and Sean Lee is still a capable player at his age despite the injuries he's had, and he's found a good role here as the 3rd linebacker because he gets hurt so often, but he's going to play a rotational role where he only plays 20% of the snaps, and he can kind of stay kind of an on-field coach and make sure the communication's on key. Like, he's going to help in run defense just by his presence alone. So I really like this run defense. You've got some question marks as far as some new guys on the interior. Can Tyrone Crawford stay healthy? But they're going to rank 11th. And then the pass rush is going to rank 13th. So I do think that DeMarcus Lawrence is becoming underrated in a lot of ways. He was my vote for Defensive Player of the Year in 2018. And he earned that massive contract, rightfully so. But he needs to still be brought up for one of the best edge rushers in the league, and you just don't hear about him quite as much. Now, he did have a down year last year. I expect him to repeat. But what else are you getting here from these pass rushers? It's a ton of question marks. So I did like the Gerald McCoy signing. I think he will contribute and be this team's second best pass rusher and provide some consistent interior pressure. Still has phenomenal get-off at his age. And then you really are scratching your head as far as what are you getting after that, because I like that. And I do believe, I ranked them 13th. That's pretty respectable. I do believe some of these guys will step up. It's just who, because you have on the edge, I would say you're looking at Aldon Smith and Randy Gregory, and what can you get from these troubled off-field players? You'd hope maybe one of them can finally put it all together. And now that marijuana testing, you can't get suspended for it, I believe. Randy Gregory, he's actually still suspended, but I think the belief is that maybe he'll be able to come back. So that's obviously a major question there. Aldon Smith is coming in here to compete to make this roster. There's a lot of hype around that signing. Now, in his glory days, he was one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, if not the best, with the San Francisco 49ers. But he's had alcohol, drug, violent, like just everything, you name it, off the field issues, he's got it. And put it on the Dallas Cowboys to give this guy another chance. And he does. He has a good opportunity here to take that number 2 edge position by storm. But I mean, man, you can't throw a bigger question mark up between Aldon Smith, Randy Gregory, and then Tyron Crawford with his injury concerns. You could very well end up having to start Dorrance Armstrong on the edge, or Joe Jackson on the edge, Jalen Jelks, these young draft picks that have really not done much here. You do draft Bradley Anae in the 5th round. If anything, that gives you a higher floor than any of these players. A really crafty, powerful rusher out of Utah, just completely lacking physical traits at all. But, I mean, if none of these other guys can get on the field and meet their potential, you at least have something there, but they just wouldn't be ideal. And then on the interior, you got question marks as well as far as rookie and Neville Gallimore, who I think can contribute, especially if he can be this team's 4th best pass rusher on the interior. I thought that was an excellent pick. A guy out of Oklahoma with really explosive get-off and traits. And Tristan Hill, I'm not going to write him off either. He didn't play much as a rookie, as a 2nd-round pick last year, but a really athletic guy, and I don't think their plan was to have him play much in his rookie season. So you definitely have some better upside and optimism, I think, on the interior to get one of these guys to emerge. But it's just a lot of question marks with this pass rush, so it's hard to rank them as a top 10 unit, even though I really like what you have in DeMarcus Lawrence and Gerald McCoy. So this pass rush is going to get after it and help this defense, and we talked about these linebackers as well. A phenomenal group of linebackers. I rank them 3rd in the league when you start to factor in coverage. So I won't get into the run defense aspect again, but I will mention they are beasts as run defenders. But as far as coverage is concerned, they're both good cover linebackers. I don't think I would say Jalen Smith or Van Der Esch are elite as far as quickness to cover anybody out of the backfield or / tight ends or coverage instincts. But I think they're both very smart, have very good zone route recognition, and are certainly not liabilities in coverage, even if they aren't, your Levante David, Eric Kendricks caliber elite cover linebackers. There are some injury questions with Leighton Van Der Esch. As far as I understand, he's good to go, but there's some scary stuff surrounding his neck. So just keep an eye on that. But if Sean Lee had to start, you'd hope that between Lee and Van Der Esch, you are going to have one of them healthy any given week. The depth here is just very poor. You have Luke Gifford, Joe Thomas, and Justin March, who I think are nothing short, or nothing higher than, rather, of practice squad caliber players. And then you have the secondary here. And this is going to be the biggest concern of this defense. There's some potential here, but a lot of question marks. And I would say you almost certainly don't have a star in the secondary, but you might have a very solid secondary with a lack of a weak link, which is much more important than, say, having an elite corner and several weaknesses. So the corner group, you're going to have Chidobe Awuzie, who is very much a breakout candidate this year, stepping into the role of the number 1 corner for this team. This cornerback position can take a few years, and I think Chidobe Awuzie is ready to grasp the number 1 outside corner in this scheme. Then you are going to have a competition on the other outside cornerback position. You have 2 slot types in Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis. One of those guys could take the outside job, but I think the more likely scenario is you're going to be looking at Trayvon Diggs, who was such a good 2nd-round pick for this team. I thought he was a 1st-round prospect if he could land in a cover 3 press-heavy scheme that I imagine this team is going to continue to run a lot of, despite the defensive change, because Awuzie and Diggs are both excellent press corners. So I expect that to continue here, especially because you have, I ranked the pass rush 13th. Like, you're going to have a good pass rush up there which usually complements these press corners because you don't want them to have to cover forever. You just want them to jam guys and get in their face for 2 or 3 seconds and let that pass rush go to work. So if Diggs can emerge as the starting number 2 corner here next to Awuzie, you're really talking with that corner group. But there's question marks, especially in this season, with a lack of practice time for these rookies for that immediate impact from Trayvon Diggs. But that's why the Daryl Worley sign is nice. If Diggs isn't what you hope, that gives you a nice floor as a guy that has experience as an outside corner coming over from the Raiders. So I did like that. And then your nickel position, I do strongly believe, is going to be very sound. You have Jordan Lewis out of Michigan and Anthony Brown. Lewis, more of that quick, instinctive cover player. Anthony Brown, more physical, tough, flies to the football. It's going to come down to a matter of preference as far as this coaching staff is concerned. Neither of these guys have really shown a whole lot on the outside. If anyone's going to take that, I think it would be Anthony Brown. But I'm really expecting only one of these guys to crown a starting job. And then the other one would certainly come in a lot in dime packages and still get a lot of playing time. But then you have Reggie Robinson, who this team spent a 4th-round pick. Lengthy, athletic corner type. I don't think he's ready to play early on, but if this team is to lose Chidobe Awuzie, if they do pay Dak Prescott, Awuzie could become very expensive, and I don't think they'd be able to afford him, similarly to what happened with Byron Jones. Reggie Robinson, in a second year, has the athletic traits to potentially emerge as an outside starter, especially in a press-heavy scheme with his length and athleticism. And then the safety group is solid, good, not great. You're going to have Xavier Woods and Clinton Dix. I don't love the fit of Clinton Dix here. I think he's been much better as a free safety than a strong safety. He just takes bad pursuit angles. He's not a great tackler. He's not overly physical. What he is, kind of an instinctive cover player. I think in an ideal world at this point, Clinton Dix would be your 3rd safety off the bench in sort of a Deron Harmon role because he doesn't have the athleticism to be a true rangy free safety either. But they're leaning in favor of his athleticism and experience to come in on a really cheap 1-year deal, kind of a Band-Aid solution at that strong safety position. Because I really like what Xavier Woods brings as a free safety. Now, maybe they do flip that more often. I think both these guys have some decent versatility, so I don't think they'll be, stuck with, Woods as the free and Dix as the strong. I think they'll rotate around. But Woods is another guy that I think in year 4 here in a contract season can really take a step up. He's a great athlete, good ball skills, definitely the instincts to play that free safety position. The safety depth's a concern with Darian Thompson and Donovan Wilson. So there's your secondary. It's a decent group. They rank 23rd. I'm just not expecting this to be a lockdown group. And that's going to wrap up your 19th ranked Cowboys defense. So let's conclude by taking a look at the schedule. And I actually have this team going 11-5. This is a particularly easy schedule. And when I saw that their Vegas over-under was 9.5 wins, but betting the over is extremely favorable at -155, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, we really are that confident that this team's going to win 10 games? And then I looked at the schedule and I was like, oh, yep, they're going to win 10 games. It's possibly the easiest schedule I've seen amidst these playoff contenders to this point. So you do start at the Rams. I have them losing that game with a question mark. But in the first half of the season, you have 4 very winnable home games with Atlanta, Cleveland, the Giants, and Arizona, who none of them are fearful teams, and you get a road game at the Washington professional football team. So I have them getting 5 wins in the first half with losses at Seattle and at Philly. Those games are not easy. But then down the stretch, you have a combination of easy and tough games. You get Washington again. You get to go to Cincinnati. You go to the New York Giants. I think they'll win all of those games. Then I have them beating Pittsburgh at home and San Francisco at home with losses at Baltimore and at Minnesota, which are tough places to play. So I have them going 11-5 on the season and a win range of 10-13. So I really do think that this team will at least have a very good regular season. I think the offense will be explosive. The question then will become, what can they do in the playoffs? And what can Dak show them in the playoffs? Because I do think Jerry Jones is not going to settle for an 11-win, season in which they lose in the second round of the playoffs again. I think he needs to see this team really be a Super Bowl contender. He's getting up there in age. He doesn't have all day to sit around and wait on Dak Prescott to make him look right. And when this deep dive series concludes, I'll be doing my full season predictions show as I usually do, which will include playoffs. So we'll see how far I think they can go when that time comes. But until then, that is your Cowboys deep dive. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sure the comments section is going to be pretty lit up after some of the things I said in this video, which is all good and fun. I'll see you guys in there. Please do hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy the series. Cheers as always, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace out.